Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a phenomenal weekend. Wow, what crazy price action we're seeing here today. We're going to look at the crypto market overview, touch on Bitcoin as a foundation before we look at altcoins or meme coins, and then obviously understand the liquidation heat maps here and kind of just get perspective on where the money is going and coming from. Overall, important stuff we want to take a look at here today. Be sure to stick around. All right, folks, before we jump into this back-end liquidation, this juicy data here, I want to touch on some polls really quick from yesterday, just touching on this weekend's price action, what your thoughts were here. Crypto Twitter thinks 106K was a more distinct probability of Bitcoin this weekend, and Crypto YouTube, roughly the same, almost a split difference there between 110 being the lowest point and 106 being the potential reality. So that is kind of where all your thoughts are there overall this weekend. I think they're a little bit on the bearish side this weekend. Probably a lot of those influencers kind of giving you these dumb looking faces with a bunch of down arrows, kind of identifying that we're probably going to continue lower. While that's true, we're overextended and it's a weekend. We haven't really experienced a ton of dumps on weekends this year. There's been quite a lot of selling pressure on Saturday and pumping pressure or pumps on Sunday, which we're kind of seeing right now in a lot of ways. While this isn't like a magnificent, strong continuation, it is still the price is recovering after having bottomed out, so to speak. Now, when we talked about this yesterday, the fear and greed index being at 40, basically pretty much in the fear spectrum there, it's important to recognize that this is the important time to buy. Generally speaking, buying the fear is the concept and you want to sell the greed. So at this point, with fear and greed index being low and altcoin season index being high, these are extremely relevant and important things to understand. And you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll probably know that I'm not super bearish, neither am I bullish right now. It's the concept is that the altcoin market is looking very strong and very consistent, and I think the likelihood of further upside is higher, but it's not going to be a monumental altcoin season. I think we're going to have some outliers. That's a conversation for another day, but my whole concept here is that we take it day by day and we understand where the market is. We don't try to attach ourselves to the fact that we're just going to go down forever. The reason why that is not the case is because we have a significant amount of market capitalization here. Altcoin market cap's at 1.62 trillion. When it maintains above 1.5, that's a super solid support type of scenario, basically letting us know there's strength in altcoins. Every time the price pulls back, altcoins are being bought and these dips are being purchased. So just a friendly reminder here to be careful attaching yourself to a specific bias right now. I'm sure there's a lot of bearish mindsets out there, but it's important to make sure you understand the trend and where we're at. We shifted our short-term descending trend ever since we hit 124,000, and now we're starting to establish higher highs and higher lows. It's usually a good sign. In most cases, that's a trend reversal indicator. All right, so we'll talk about that. Jumping over to liquidations, we see the most amount of liquidations, big surprise with Ethereum, more longs and shorts getting hit there. It's 2-to-1 ratio essentially. And usually, and again, I identified this yesterday, we're in the lower channel for that coin. So the likelihood of the price recovering from here is higher, but once more, you want to be kind of cautious and careful. But the whole concept of looking at this here is kind of understanding where Bitcoin is at in that spectrum. We're seeing more longs than shorts getting liquidated in the last 24 hours for Bitcoin. Therefore, more propensity for the price to continue higher up because of the fact that a lot of late shorts are trapped and market makers know that. They really love manipulating weekends. That's why we typically see a bad Saturday and a good Sunday, or a good Saturday and a bad Sunday. It's a really common occurrence. Taking a look here just quickly at some CME gaps. Specifically Bitcoin, 112,000 is the current gap there. So hypothetically, the price is at roughly 111. We should see the price recover to 112 either today or sometime soon this week. That's the concept. There is still a pretty large gap from 114 to 117 too. Be mindful that is still present. Obviously, Ethereum has 4360. It's pretty deficient in that regard, about 60 off. And then Solana actually has the largest deficiency. It's down in the low 200s at 207. So just know that that's kind of roughly where they are at. Now, the Gaussian candle, which correct me if I'm saying that incorrectly, is essentially letting us know that we're in pretty good shape here. We're seeing 110,000 as that upper band, right there consistent with the previous high and more specifically the 50-day SMA. So that's what we call confluence in the industry, folks. This lets us know we have a lot of confirming factors in one area. The likelihood of breaking that is fairly low. Just keep that in mind. All right. So it doesn't mean we're just going to go straight to the moon from here. We're not, I don't think we're going to be taking a rocket ship anytime soon, but the concept here remains the same, that we are still fairly well bullish. at least once more on the short-term time frame. It's an important distinction. Okay, so let's look at the Bitcoin backend data here. Last 7 days of open interest, we can see a heavy accumulation at 111 here locally, but specifically 113 is that highest point, that second largest above the price, and approximately 110 below. So 110, 111, 113, those are kind of just some easy numbers to remember. Those are support and resistance ranges here in this local last 7 days. When we look at liquidation delta, we can see that this is still bearish, implying that generally speaking, there's more people shorting than taking longs. Furthermore, too, with liquidation, we can see 109, there's a big chunk of liquidation below the price, and respectively 114.5 above. Okay, so this is again last 7 days worth of trading. Not the best identification here. Actually, here before I screw this up completely, let's go ahead and change the time frame and go to last 3 days, basically the weekend's price action, and just kind of see where we have the most amount of longs and shorts. Pretty similar, very much similar. It's just a little easier to identify. So 109 once more and 114.5. Okay, so those are the areas of liquidation here, more locally and even on a larger time frame. Now, when we look at Bitcoin here, the whole concept before you trade any altcoins is to ensure you understand where Bitcoin's going. What direction is it heading? So that's why I always look at Bitcoin in my analysis videos. If you're not, if you're sick and tired of hearing about Bitcoin, I get it. It's stupid that altcoins respond to it like little lost puppies. But for the most part, identifying the correlation or the dissimilarities, so to speak, is the most important thing you can do for yourself. That's why I'm very successful in trading altcoins, because there's ways in which altcoins separate themselves from Bitcoin, and those are the outliers you want to kind of pay attention to. Or at the very least, if you're going to trade altcoins, make sure if it's running 1-to-1 ratio with Bitcoin, that you understand what Bitcoin's doing too. Okay, so that's why we do this. Anyways, just a good foundation. 4-hour time frame is looking fairly well bullish. We're still maintaining above all moving averages here. We can see we've reclaimed 50 on the RSI. And while money flow index is pulling back, that's standard for a weekend. It's not the best indicator to utilize, at least on these time frames here, the 4 to 1 day time frame. We can see stochastic swinging up as well. These are generally favorable signs, especially with a MACD convergence here on the horizon. We're also maintaining right here at our point of control here locally. This is roughly since August 21st. So this is about 2 to 3 weeks worth of trading data. In the last 2 to 3 weeks, the most amount of positions bought of Bitcoin is at 111,200. And we're right there at that level. So while that's not like super telling, it is indicating with us being above that or progressing above that we're in better shape than we have been recently. Now to touch on the bigger picture, once more, we had these lower high patterns. We've now essentially created a higher high on smaller time frames, but we've broken our descending trend line. Okay, that's the key takeaway there. Now we're not over all moving averages yet. In fact, moving averages move with the price. So the truth is we're still maintaining below that level. So this isn't like a fully bullish scenario. We're also under 50 on the RSI, but if we cross above that level, just say we get a closure at 112,000.5 or higher, that's going to be a good little signal there to let us know that we're over 50 on the RSI, we're over 20 on the SMAs, and we've held that convergence on the MACD. So these are all early signs of reversal, kind of letting us know that a breakout to the upside makes more sense than a breakdown further. Okay. Now, market makers are exactly that. They're going to probably try to trade late longs or shorts and just totally screw your life up. But outside of that manipulation, for the most part, this is a good early sign of reversal. So those are my thoughts on Bitcoin. What are yours? Why don't you comment below and let us know. If you're looking for a new exchange or possibly just want to help support the channel, Bitunix has got you covered. We've been partnered with this exchange for over 2 years. It's been our fan favorite for our community, and the reason why is because they take really good care of you. They offer trading reward bonuses as well as a reduction in fees. Best exchange I would recommend at this point. Link down below for more information. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at some altcoins now that we understand where Bitcoin is at. Starting off in no specific order with Litecoin first. This coin is a coin I'm considering taking a long position with. I'll explain more so about that. For starters here, just kind of give you some perspective on the back end first. So we're looking at the 1 month on the right-hand side. This is 1 month of open interest, just kind of identifying that we have a ton of open interest in the 125 to 135 range. That's close to the local high here, essentially letting us know that we have some resistance or selling pressure in that range. 125 125, by the way, is a key level resistance. We have a macro point of control there and a previous high daily candlestick close. So that's kind of an area of resistance between now and then. I think 115 to 125 is a solid consideration for a potential long in that range. Now we look at liquidation long delta, we can see here that a significant amount of longs have entered. We're looking at about 120 million long liquidation. That's a really good sign. If we take a look here as well at liquidation itself, there is a chunk upwards about 122, but a little bit left upwards about 117. So while the price should continue higher, it may not run to 125 right away. That's kind of what it's telling us, just that we have some late shorts there at 116, and the likelihood of them getting swept here soon is quite high, but a monumental run to 125 seems less likely at this point. Now, all that being said, from the bigger picture perspective, we look at the daily time frame, we can kind of see here that we're maintaining right in between both moving averages. So this is kind of a good sign. It's a transitionary situation where we're above the local point of control at 114 for the moment, but we're also converging on the MACD, and we're seeing a the daily time frame, we're above 50 in the RSI, and the money flow index is getting closer to converging with the price. So those are all extremely positive signs. I would love to be above the 50-day SMA, but there's a fair value gap above the price action, more propensity for the price to continue higher at this point, especially with that shift in momentum. Now, when it comes to the overall sense in the 4-hour time frame, there's very little here that I don't like. I like to see this MACD converging. I like to see money flow index pivoting off of that 20 range. It implies overextension here recently. It's a type of bullish convergence where we're establishing higher highs and higher lows, and money flow index is making a lower low. That's actually a very good sign, believe it or not, because it shows that there's more momentum now than there was before, or more propensity to go higher because we have more volume entering into the market in the last 24 to 48 hours. We can also recognize too, RSI is trending towards 70, stochastic swinging up. These are all extremely good positive signs. But the most important, I feel, is this local range here. I think it's between 113 and 114 approximately. We can see a significant amount of support in this range if the price were to pull back and retest. In other words, we have our previous high that should work as a new low, as well as our previous high range. So as we accumulate more volume in this range and we have that volume profile that's heavier to the downside, those are all things that reinforce support. So ultimately, I love what I see here for Litecoin. This is absolutely a good consideration for a long. I would not consider shorting this coin. Doesn't make a ton of sense with everything being so bullish. Okay, so let's move on to SEI. This coin actually looks pretty good too in the outside looking in, but let's go ahead and double check and make sure. So first of all, from a 1 month perspective on the right-hand side, we can see open interest, letting us know that 0.32 essentially is that area of basically 32 cents as a round number is the heaviest amount of open interest. So we're going to expect to see some resistance there or exit liquidity. All that said, liquidation long delta is pretty much at break even. So that implies that we're seeing just as many bulls as we are bears. But this tells me that we're going to see a short squeeze and a push higher to that 32 cent range because all this liquidation here. This is pretty chunky. Anytime you see this kind of like this blue color, it's a very solid sign of significant amounts of liquidation. So there's a lot of shorts at 30 cents right now that are probably going to get hit really hard if the price were to push through that level. Not only do we have a fair value gap there, but we have also broken above our local high, which is extremely important. Now, taking a look at the 4-hour time frame, we can see a lot of convergences here. Pretty much everything looks on par for a good continuation. If we take a look at the macro here as well, we kind of just quickly draw out a trend line here. We can see that we're in pretty good shape to have been broken here recently. So about 3 or 4 days ago, we stopped establishing lower highs and we're now establishing higher highs and higher lows. Those are extremely important when a continuation potential is in the cards. When we look here as well at the MACD, we're starting to converge. We're now testing 50 on the RSI while we haven't officially broke at that level. Money flow index is above the RSI. It's always a bullish sign. It implies that the coin is not overbought and that there's more money flowing in to support the price action. Those are all extremely good signs. So SEI also has a good propensity to at least hit that 32 cent mark here locally. That is coincidentally right below this 0.382 fib level. So the overall sense here is that between now and 32 cents, I think that the likelihood of further upside is higher. So SEI has my vote on a potential long consideration here in the relative near future. Just keep in mind today's a weekend. It's still a weekend, and traditional markets could open up poorly tomorrow morning. Asian markets could dump tonight. There's a lot of things that could happen, but for the most part, these are all good early reversal signs of sustainability. Plus, if you look at this volume below the price, we're starting to break through that level. Okay, so all the exit liquidity has been taken, and now it's just now there's just more buying pressure. So I really like what I see here from SEI. Let's move on to AVAX here. AVAX has always been a really funky coin. At least I wouldn't say always. It had its pretty good times in the past, but as of lately, it's been difficult to want to trust this coin as far as price action is concerned. Main reason why I don't love it is because there's tons of open interest above the price. There just reinforces a ridiculous amount of resistance at $25 to $26. There is a lot of short liquidation data here too, basically telling us that there's way too many shorts at this point, which is understandably so. That $25 mark is heavily guarded. But when we look at liquidation, there's both liquidation above and below the price. I really don't like trading situations like this with these kind of ranges. So ultimately, that isn't fantastic. Let's see if the daily time frame tells us anything different. And just kind of recognize we are still bullish here on the daily time frame, which is unique. This coin probably has more propensity to break upwards than downwards based on the fact that we're over all moving averages, and we're in a pretty good position there above our point of control at 2360. So those are ultimately good signs. Maintaining over 50 on the RSI. Money flow index is increasing. While it's on the pullback, it's still looking pretty decent there, and MACD's trying to converge but hasn't. So yeah, I'm not going to try to stretch the truth here and let you know that this is like the best case scenario, but it's above average, you could say. And statistically, you're going to find more favorability going higher than lower, pending Bitcoin doesn't make a run towards 106K or lower. 4-hour time frame still looks good too here from a moving average perspective. Over 50 on the RSI, MACD is converging. There's a lot of good signs here for this coin, more likelihood of going higher. So while the backend data isn't like super amazing, the charts are telling us that we're in pretty good shape here above a lot of important support ranges, not just based on volume and open interest, but also moving averages, which are tried and true, pretty important indicators to pay attention to. So AVAX also has my vote on a potential consideration for a long. Let's take a look here at Ondo and double check some important stuff here. First things first, with Ondo on the back end, there is a lot of resistance at 95 cents and $1. Big surprise, key level resistances or supports in general accumulating at round numbers. So 95 cents, $1, that's kind of a consistency there. We can also recognize liquidation short delta is super high, so there's a ton of people shorting this coin. Generally speaking, when you have this many people wanting to short the coin and there's liquidation below the price, that's a double negative. That implies that taking along with this coin is a high risk. Okay. Now, having not looked at the charts just yet, from a back-end data perspective, I'd say this coin is not worth taking along with. The likelihood of further downside is higher, especially with this pattern here. Look, we've made lower lows and lower highs, never officially broke this local range at 95 cents. We have open interest or rather the point of control here locally. Or sorry, not local, that's macro. Ever since July, we've seen the most amount of volume at 92 cents. That implies new resistance here, or basically the sustained resistance. We're not over 50 on the RSI. Daily time frame looks pretty terrible. 4 hours below all moving averages and under 50. The only thing we have here, which is a consolation, is the MACD. And you don't trade on consolation, but we have a slight convergence here, implying there could be some shorts that get squeezed out here soon. But there's very little positive stuff here on Ondo that would want to incentivize me to take a long. So I would hold off on this coin if you're considering a long. And generally speaking, if you're thinking about a short, 95 cents, if the price recovers back to 95, that's a solid consideration based on how much resistance we have in that range. But I don't even think we're going to hit that level, honestly. This coin is underperforming and very underwhelming. All right, moving on to ICP. Let's double check this guy here. This has some early signs, if we just take a quick peek at the chart, of trend reversal. We've broken our descending trend. Now, do you trade solely based on descending trend breakouts? No, you want to see and make sure there's higher highs and higher lows established and that we are maintaining above a good volume profile. All that being said though, 476, a ton of open interest in that range. So this does incentivize the price to go higher or not go much lower than this level. Furthermore, though, we do have a ton of liquidation short delta at about 8 million. That's actually quite a lot for this coin. And we look at the overall sentiment here for liquidation. There's a lot above and below. So there's pretty heavy chunks both above and below. We're technically closer to 490, so a squeeze to 490 to $5 does seem practical at this point based on that data there. Let's look at the daily and understand here kind of where we're at. This is a pretty abysmal macro time frame. So if we kind of take a look here, we pull our fib levels out, for example, we can kind of see that this is a pretty significant descending trend, okay? So overall, not the greatest. Even though we have broken slightly bullish on the shorter time frames, the macro perspective tells us that we aren't even close. All that said, we're still under 50 on the RSI, which is generally a good shift in momentum, which we don't have yet, and MACD isn't even converging. So I'm going to lean more towards, even though we're seeing smaller time frame potential continuation patterns here, the bulk of what we're seeing here so far is bearish. There's nothing really good here. What we want to look for here is a close above the cloud here, of course, first of all, about 485 or higher. But more importantly, we want to get above this local high here, preferably our previous high of 490. So I won't be interested in taking along in this coin until I see 490 or higher on a daily candlestick closure. That's what I'm going to be looking for. That's my kind of confirmation. Last but not least, take a look here at Hype and just kind of see what's going on here. This is a requested coin here recently from some of my comments from yesterday's video. So taking a look here at Hype on the right, 47 is a heavy chunk of volume in open interest. 46.50 as well, also some lower support. So we got good support below the price. When we look at the liquidation, it's approaching break even, which is a potential shift in momentum. And there's a lot of liquidation above the price. So back-end data here, if I traded solely on back-end data, this coin has everything I want to look for to take a long position. I'm not going to take a long to $100 though. That's the thing you got to understand. Some people seem to watch these videos or just in general interpret bullishness as just like mindless holding on for dear life and never selling. Don't get me wrong, obviously spot bags are different stories, but when it comes to what we're seeing here, and I say I'm bullish on something, there's a very tentative, there's a pause at the end of that, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that here is, simply put, if we look at the 4-hour time frame here, we're above all moving averages. We're over our Ichimoku cloud. We can also recognize we're over 50 in the RSI, MACD is converging. There's a ton of positive contributing factors here. And if we look at the daily time frame, it's also the same. We're still in our ascending trend. We're making higher highs and higher lows. We're over all moving averages, and our point of control at $44 is awesome. That's basically a support level for us. So the long story short here is the price is more likely to retest its local high here and or break that level soon. But at this point, how much higher is it going to go if we get into this price discovery? It's hard to say. Once we get 51 or higher, we're going to see some interesting and unique behavior, and we'll have a different conversation. Between now and then, I think retesting its local and or all-time high, from what I can see, at least on this chart, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong on all-time highs for this coin. I think this is the I forget what chart this is, but this is definitely a situation where when we get close to that level, the likelihood of breakout is higher, but it's also one of those situations where you got to wait for it to break first to know where it's going to go. All right. So I could draw out some magical fib levels for you. I could give you all sorts of crazy stuff. I could do some Elliott wave for you too, and just give you like 50 different possible case scenarios of how awesome it's going to be. Between now and then, we got to break that level first to know where we're going to go first. All right. What I'm getting at here, simple way to understand it. This coin looks definitely bullish, absolutely likely to break its local high or its local range, but how much further past that level, nobody knows. All right, so that's kind of where we're at there. I hope that makes sense and I described it correctly. Sorry if I go on my soapboxes every once in a while. I just like to try to educate and give you the best practice, because unfortunately, from what I understand, there's just a ton of idiots out there that are misadvising and just kind of not even taking the time to explain stuff. So if you want a bit better of an experience there, cryptocash.tech is a site linked down below. I've got a trading academy, community, and signals group. And obviously, if you just want to become a better trader, jump on over to our Discord or our Telegram. There we got some free groups. You can just chat it up with some awesome traders. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks again for being an amazing part of my life. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.